There are people who seem to walk through storms without being destroyed, while others collapse under problems that appear smaller. Some face betrayal, financial struggles, sickness, closed doors, and constant spiritual exhaustion, while others move through life with what feels like an invisible shield around them. In Jewish wisdom, this is not seen as simple luck. It is understood as spiritual alignment. Welcome to Sabiduria Judía. Many people ask the same question. Why do some people seem protected from everything? Why do certain families survive seasons that should have broken them? Why do some people avoid disasters they never even knew were coming? The Torah and the teachings of Jewish sages offer an answer that is both simple and profound. Protection begins long before danger appears. Today we are going to talk about one daily practice that, according to many rabbis and teachings rooted in Torah and Kabbalah, can completely change the spiritual atmosphere around your life. It is not about superstition, secret rituals, or impossible religious demands. It is something accessible, powerful, and deeply transformative. But almost nobody does it correctly because it requires something modern people resist: consistency. And this is where the mystery begins. Most people spend their lives trying to fix visible problems while ignoring invisible causes. They fight consequences without touching the spiritual roots. They pray only when crisis arrives. They seek peace only when anxiety has already taken over. But Jewish wisdom teaches something very different. If you wait for the storm to build your shelter, you are already late. Protection is built before the battle. Before we continue, subscribe now to the channel Sabiduria Judía, because this space exists to bring ancient spiritual teachings into practical daily life. Your support helps this message reach more people who are searching for clarity and protection. And I want you to write something in the comments right now. I walk under divine protection. Do not write it as a simple phrase. Write it with intention. In Jewish tradition, words are not empty sounds. Words carry spiritual force. What the mouth declares can shape what the soul begins to believe. Also, here on the channel, there are many more videos about spiritual protection, prosperity, divine signs, and deep teachings of the Torah that can help you continue this journey. Now pay close attention. One of the strongest foundations in Jewish thought is the understanding that human beings do not live only in the physical world. There is always an invisible layer influencing what becomes visible. What many call luck, coincidence, or destiny is often connected to spiritual movement that cannot be seen with ordinary eyes. Kabbalah teaches that every action creates energy, every word spoken, every thought repeated, every act of gratitude, every act of pride, every hidden intention, every gesture of generosity. Everything leaves a mark. Nothing is neutral. People often think spiritual life only happens inside a synagogue, during prayer, or in moments of religious devotion. But according to Jewish wisdom, spirituality is constant. You are always building something, even when you do not realize it. And one of the greatest secrets of protection is found in the very first moments of the day. Most people wake up and immediately invite chaos inside. They reach for the phone before they reach for awareness. They open messages before they open gratitude. They absorb stress before they remember God. They let fear enter before peace has a chance. Spiritually, this matters more than most people imagine, because the first thought of the day opens a gate. And the real question is, what are you allowing to enter? The Jewish tradition teaches that waking up is not just physical. Each morning, the soul is returned. Sleep is not only rest, it is a partial withdrawal of consciousness. Waking up is a form of spiritual renewal. It is another opportunity to realign your life. That is why observant Jews begin the day with a short but powerful declaration called Modeh Ani. It is simple, it is brief, but spiritually, it carries enormous weight. Before asking for anything, before complaining, before touching the world, the first movement is gratitude, not because gratitude is polite, but because gratitude is alignment. Many people want blessing without gratitude. They want protection without discipline. They want peace without surrender. But the Torah repeatedly teaches that abundance does not settle where entitlement rules. Gratitude is not decoration. It is structure. When a person wakes up and recognizes that life is not automatic, that breath is not guaranteed, that another day is not owed but given, something changes inside. And when something changes inside, the outside begins to respond differently. Many rabbis explain that sincere gratitude softens certain spiritual judgments. This does not mean a person will never face problems. It means problems do not arrive with the same destructive power. There are people who go through fire and are not consumed. There are people who face attacks and do not collapse. There are people who walk through darkness and somehow keep direction. That is also protection. Protection does not always mean the absence of war. Sometimes it means the presence of God inside the war, and this is where many people misunderstand divine help. They expect dramatic miracles and ignore quiet rescue. Sometimes protection looks like a delay that saved your life. Sometimes it looks like a door that closed and felt unfair. Sometimes it looks like a person leaving. Sometimes it looks like discomfort that stopped a bad decision. Sometimes what looked like rejection was actually rescue. But only spiritual sensitivity allows someone to recognize that. And sensitivity does not appear by accident. It is developed through daily practice. Kabbalah often speaks about spiritual vessels. Blessing may exist, but if the person has no internal capacity to receive it, the blessing passes without stability. A chaotic mind struggles to hold peace. An arrogant heart struggles to hold wisdom. A restless life struggles to hear divine direction. This is why small routines matter. Not because the routine itself is magical, but because it reveals the posture of the soul. Who are you when nobody is watching? How do you wake up? What rules your first hour? Panic or presence? What enters your spirit before the world enters your schedule? These questions matter more than people think. Many want extraordinary results while protecting ordinary chaos. They want financial peace while living in constant inner disorder. They want spiritual covering while feeding daily anxiety. They want clarity while refusing silence. But Jewish wisdom always returns to the same principle. The root comes before the fruit. If the roots are poisoned, the fruit will eventually reveal it. If the roots are aligned, the fruit follows with time. This is why doing this for just one day, truly, intentionally, honestly, can reveal more than years of empty theory, because experience teaches what information cannot. This is not about repeating words like a machine. It is about waking up with awareness, with reverence, with spiritual seriousness, with gratitude that is real. When that happens, a person stops living as a victim of circumstances and begins walking as someone guided within them. It is important to say clearly that these teachings are based on public Jewish sources, Torah study, and reflections shared by rabbis in accessible teachings. They do not replace personal religious guidance or direct rabbinical counsel, and spiritual results always depend on faith, intention, and sincerity. There is no automatic formula. There is only real connection. That is where everything begins. If this message is already speaking to you, write again in the comments, "I walk under divine protection." Write it with conviction, and share this video with someone who needs to hear it today. Here on Sabiduria Judía, there are many more teachings waiting for you about prosperity, spiritual warfare, divine signs, and the hidden wisdom that can change the way you see your life forever. Many people spend years searching for secret formulas to explain why some lives seem protected, prosperous, and strangely preserved even in difficult seasons. They imagine there must be hidden rituals, inaccessible knowledge, or some mysterious privilege reserved for only a few. But when we look deeply into Jewish wisdom, into the teachings of the Torah, and the reflections of many rabbis, we discover something both simpler and far more powerful. The secret is trust expressed through daily gratitude and total surrender to God. This is where many people misunderstand the spiritual strength of the Jewish tradition. They see discipline, prayer, blessings before meals, words of gratitude, respect for sacred time, and they think these are merely religious habits. But behind these actions exists an entire spiritual structure. It is not routine for the sake of routine. It is a constant act of remembering who is truly in control. The secret is this: they do not carry life alone. They place everything before God. Their work, their money, their health, their children, their fears, their victories, their plans, even their uncertainty. They train themselves not to live as if they are the center of power, but as people under divine covering. And this creates something spiritually powerful: dependence without weakness, surrender without defeat, and trust without passivity. Many rabbis teach that one of the greatest illusions of modern life is the belief that control belongs to us. People wake up already anxious because they believe everything depends entirely on their own strength. They believe if they do not force every outcome, life will collapse. This creates constant fear, and fear becomes a silent form of worship because whatever dominates your mind begins to govern your spirit. Jewish wisdom confronts this directly. The Torah teaches responsibility, yes, but never the illusion of absolute control. A person must work, must plan, must act with wisdom, but always with the understanding that the final result belongs to God. This is why gratitude is so central. Gratitude reminds the soul that nothing is self-created. When a Jewish person blesses food before eating, it is not empty tradition. It is recognition. It is saying, "This provision did not come only from my effort. This came because heaven allowed it." When they thank God after eating, they are training the heart not to become arrogant. They are refusing the dangerous illusion that success belongs only to human hands. And here is something many people ignore. Arrogance weakens spiritual protection, not because God is offended by confidence, but because pride disconnects the person from dependence on divine wisdom. The arrogant person begins to trust only themselves. They stop listening. They stop perceiving. They stop surrendering. And little by little, they walk outside the awareness of divine covering. This is why gratitude is not small. It is protection. Some people only remember God when disaster arrives. They lose money and suddenly pray. They receive bad news and suddenly seek spiritual direction. They feel abandoned and only then begin asking for help. But the Jewish path teaches continuity. God is not an emergency contact. God is the center of daily life. Before eating, gratitude. Before sleeping, gratitude. After waking, gratitude. Before travel, prayer. Before decisions, reflection. Before fear grows, trust. This constant return creates spiritual stability. And this is also why prosperity, in Jewish thought, is deeply connected to consciousness, and not only income. A wealthy soul is not merely a person with money, but someone who knows the source of provision. Without that, abundance can become destruction. That is exactly why our ebook Prosperidad Judía exists as a complement to these teachings. Many people ask how to apply these principles in practical daily life, especially in financial areas, emotional peace, and spiritual protection. In this ebook, we go deeper into the mindset, habits, and spiritual structure behind true prosperity according to Jewish wisdom. The link is in the description of this video for those who want to study this more seriously and transform these ideas into real practice. One of the strongest examples of this trust appears in the concept of bitachon, which means trust in God. It is not passive optimism. It is not pretending problems do not exist. It is the disciplined certainty that even when you do not understand the path, God is still governing it. Bitachon changes the emotional atmosphere of a person. Two people can face the same problem. One enters panic, desperation, and spiritual exhaustion. The other feels concerned but remains anchored. Why? Because one believes they are alone, and the other believes heaven is involved. This does not remove pain, but it changes how pain is carried. Many Jewish sages explain that fear itself can distort judgment. A frightened person makes rushed decisions, trusts the wrong people, speaks too much, closes the wrong doors, and opens dangerous ones. But trust creates clarity. When the soul is not ruled by panic, wisdom becomes easier to hear. This is why surrender protects. Not magical surrender, but real surrender. The kind that says, "I will do my part, but I refuse to live like God has abandoned me." That sentence alone can change a life, because many people secretly live as if heaven is silent. They believe they are unsupported. They believe they must survive through anxiety. They believe stress is proof of responsibility. But Jewish wisdom says something radical. Anxiety is not strategy. Trust is, and trust must be practiced, not merely admired. This is why small actions matter. Pausing before eating, blessing what arrives, thanking for what did not happen, recognizing protection even in closed doors, returning the mind to God when fear begins speaking louder than faith. These are not poetic ideas. These are spiritual disciplines. There are families who, before making major decisions, stop and pray together. There are people who begin business meetings after quiet prayer. There are mothers who whisper blessings over children before sleep. There are fathers who teach gratitude at the dinner table, not as religion alone, but as identity. This repeated surrender shapes generations. Children raised in constant gratitude grow with different spiritual reflexes. Instead of panic, they remember prayer. Instead of pride, they remember dependence. Instead of entitlement, they remember provision. This creates invisible inheritance, not only financial inheritance, but spiritual inheritance. And perhaps this is one of the reasons many people observe Jewish resilience with so much curiosity. They are not seeing luck. They are seeing generations trained to place life under divine order. Of course, this does not mean there is no suffering. Jewish history itself proves that pain exists even among the faithful. But the difference is not the absence of suffering. It is the refusal to let suffering become spiritual abandonment. Even in exile, gratitude. Even in uncertainty, prayer. Even in loss, remembrance. Even in fear, trust. That is strength. And that strength creates protection because it keeps the soul aligned. Kabbalah teaches that spiritual light enters where there is alignment between intention and action. A person cannot claim trust while feeding constant inner rebellion. If the mouth says faith but the heart worships fear, the conflict weakens peace. This is why sincerity matters. You do not need perfect words. You need honest surrender. Sometimes the strongest prayer is simple. God, I do not understand this, but I place it in your hands. That sentence can calm a storm inside a person faster than 100 empty speeches. And notice something important. Gratitude is not denial of pain. It is the refusal to let pain become the only truth. A person can cry and still trust, can grieve and still believe, can feel weak and still remain protected. Because protection is not emotional perfection. It is spiritual connection. This is why the secret is not hidden in complicated rituals. It is hidden in daily dependence, giving thanks, returning control, recognizing God in ordinary moments, trusting divine timing, refusing to worship fear. This is the shield many people are searching for, not because life becomes easy, but because life becomes covered. And when a person truly understands this, something changes forever. They stop asking only, how do I solve this? And begin asking, how do I walk through this with God? That question changes everything, because when life is surrendered, protection stops being a desperate request and becomes a way of living. And perhaps that is why some people seem protected from everything, not because nothing attacks them, but because everything first passes through the hands of God. If this message is speaking to your heart, write in the comments, I trust God with everything. Write it with intention. And remember, there are more videos here on Sabiduria Judia about prosperity, divine protection, spiritual discipline, and the deeper teachings of Torah that can continue helping you on this path. There is another truth that many people ignore when they look at Jewish protection and prosperity from the outside. Gratitude and trust are not enough if the mouth and the heart are working against each other. A person may pray in the morning, thank God before eating, and still spend the rest of the day speaking destruction over their own life. In Jewish wisdom, words are never treated as something small. The mouth is not just a tool of communication, it is considered an instrument of spiritual construction. This is one of the deepest teachings found both in Torah and in the reflections of Kabbalah. Creation itself begins through divine speech. God speaks, and reality responds. This does not mean human words have the same power as the Creator, but it reveals a principle. Words shape worlds. What is spoken repeatedly begins to influence what is built internally and eventually externally. Many people say they want peace, but they constantly speak fear. They say they desire prosperity, but they speak only lack. They pray for protection, but they confess defeat every day with their own mouths. Without realizing it, they are feeding the very atmosphere they want to escape. Jewish sages have long warned about this. Lashon, speech, is treated with enormous seriousness, not only because words affect relationships, but because they affect spiritual reality. Gossip, constant complaint, humiliation, pessimism without wisdom, and careless negativity are not seen as harmless habits. They are understood as forces that weaken the soul and disturb the spiritual environment around a person. Think about how many homes are filled with invisible heaviness, not because of external enemies, but because the language inside those walls has become toxic. Constant criticism, constant fear, constant dishonor. Constant declarations of failure. People underestimate how much repeated speech creates emotional and spiritual climate. This is why many rabbis teach that protection begins not only with prayer upward, but with discipline inward. What are you saying when nobody is listening? How do you describe your future? How do you speak about your family? How do you speak about your own worth? These are not small details. They are spiritual seeds. There are people who wake up and immediately declare defeat. They say life never works for me. Nothing changes. I always fail. People always betray me. Money never stays. My family is cursed. My future is closed. At some point, the soul begins to live inside the prison those words built. The Torah teaches responsibility over speech because language reveals agreement. What you repeat, you strengthen. What you constantly declare, you begin to normalize. This is why gratitude is so powerful. It interrupts the natural human tendency toward fear and complaint. A grateful person does not ignore problems, but refuses to let problems become their identity. This is also connected to prosperity in a very practical way. Many people sabotage financial growth not only through bad decisions, but through spiritual resistance created by their own mentality. They live with deep internal guilt around abundance. They fear success. They associate money with corruption. They speak prosperity as if it belongs to other people, never to themselves. Jewish wisdom approaches wealth differently. Prosperity is not worshipped, but it is not demonized either. Money is understood as a tool, a responsibility, and sometimes even a test. The issue is never wealth itself, but the heart that holds it. If a person sees provision as something dirty, they unconsciously reject it. If they see abundance only through envy, they disconnect from gratitude. But if they understand prosperity as a resource entrusted by God for purpose, generosity, stability, and blessing, their relationship with it changes. This is one of the reasons charity, or tzedakah, is so central in Jewish life. Many outsiders think charity is simply kindness, but in Jewish understanding, it carries much deeper meaning. Tzedakah is connected to justice and alignment. It reminds the person that what they have is not owned in absolute terms. It is entrusted. And here we discover another powerful secret of protection. Giving protects. This sounds strange to many people because the world teaches survival through accumulation. Keep more. Hold tighter. Protect yourself first. But Jewish wisdom teaches that closed hands often create closed heavens. When a person gives with sincerity, they are declaring trust. They are saying, "My security does not come only from what I keep, but from the God who provides." This breaks the spirit of scarcity and strengthens spiritual flow. Of course, this is not manipulation. Giving is not a transaction where someone buys miracles. It is alignment of heart. It is the refusal to let fear become the ruler of provision. Many rabbis explain that when a person gives even during seasons of uncertainty, something profound happens inside them. Fear loses authority. The soul remembers abundance is not created by panic. This is why so many Jewish families, even when not wealthy by worldly standards, maintain generosity as principle. They understand something many people forget. Generosity is not what rich people do, it is how wise people live. And notice how all of this connects. Gratitude protects because it keeps pride away. Trust protects because it removes panic. Words protect because they shape spiritual atmosphere. Giving protects because it defeats scarcity and selfish fear. None of this is random. It is a structure. People often ask why some individuals seem to carry peace even in unstable seasons. They assume those people have fewer problems. Often the opposite is true. They simply built stronger spiritual foundations before the problems arrived. A storm reveals structure. When pressure comes, weak foundations become visible. Some people collapse because their inner life was built only on appearance. Others remain standing because long before the storm they built trust, discipline, and spiritual clarity. And this is where many viewers ask the most difficult question: what if I have not lived this way until now? What if my habits have been fear, complaint, pride, spiritual neglect, and constant emotional chaos? Is protection something only for those who started earlier? The answer in Jewish wisdom is deeply hopeful. Teshuvah, return. One of the most powerful concepts in Torah is that return is always possible. A person is not trapped forever by yesterday's spiritual disorder. They can realign. They can return. They can rebuild. This does not mean instant perfection. It means direction. Many people delay spiritual change because they think transformation must be dramatic. They imagine a perfect future version of themselves and become paralyzed by the distance. But Jewish wisdom honors consistent return more than emotional intensity. A small, sincere correction repeated daily is stronger than one dramatic promise abandoned next week. This is why protection often begins quietly. A person starts speaking with more awareness. They stop feeding constant complaint. They choose gratitude before panic. They begin blessing instead of cursing their own future. They return money, family, and decisions to God. They practice generosity even when fear says hold everything. Little by little, spiritual atmosphere changes. Not because life became magical, but because alignment returned. And this is exactly why our ebook Prosperidad Judía matters so much as a practical companion to these teachings. Many people listen to these ideas and feel inspired, but they struggle with one question: how do I actually live this every day? How do I apply trust, gratitude, prosperity, discipline, and spiritual protection in real decisions involving work, money, family, and peace of mind? That is why this ebook was created. It helps transform spiritual principles into practical habits rooted in Jewish wisdom. It is not about fantasy, it is about structure. The link is in the description of this video for those who want to go deeper and build this path with clarity. There is something else important to understand. Divine protection does not mean perfection of circumstances. It means divine presence within circumstances. Some people expect faith to remove every challenge, and when hardship comes, they assume they failed spiritually. But Torah never promises a life without challenge. It teaches something stronger, a life where challenge does not have final authority. Even righteous people face battles. Even wise people experience loss. Even faithful people walk through uncertainty. But they do not walk alone. That is the difference. Protection is not the absence of darkness. It is the refusal of darkness to define destiny. And when someone understands this, they stop measuring God only by visible comfort. They begin recognizing divine faithfulness in endurance, wisdom, redirection, and unseen rescue. Sometimes, the greatest blessing is not getting what you asked for. Sometimes, protection looks like disappointment. Sometimes, heaven says no because your future requires it. And later, what felt like loss becomes evidence of mercy. This is why trust must be stronger than immediate emotion. A person who only trusts when life feels easy has not learned trust yet. Real trust survives unanswered questions. It survives silence. It survives delay. It survives seasons where clarity has not arrived. Because trust is not confidence in circumstances. It is confidence in God. And that changes everything. The protected life is not built in public moments. It is built in private decisions, in what you say, in what you believe, in what you release, in what you refuse to let fear control. This is where strength is formed, not in applause, but in surrender, not in appearance, but in alignment. And when that becomes daily life, people begin to notice something different about you. They may call it luck, they may call it favor, they may call it unusual peace, but deep inside, you know what it is. It is a life no longer carried alone. If this message is reaching you, write in the comments, "My words will build peace." Write it with intention, because words matter. And remember, here on Sabiduría Judía, there are more videos waiting for you about spiritual protection, prosperity, Torah wisdom, and the hidden principles that shape a stronger life. Are you enjoying this content so far? If this message is helping you see life with more clarity, then as a way of supporting the channel, you can acquire the ebook Prosperidad Judía, which is available in the description of this video. It was created exactly for people who want to go deeper into these teachings and apply Jewish wisdom to prosperity, spiritual protection, financial peace, and inner stability in a practical way. Many people listen to these principles and feel inspired, but the real transformation happens when knowledge becomes daily structure. That is why this ebook exists, to help you build that structure with clarity and intention. One of the greatest mistakes people make when searching for divine protection is believing that protection means a life without opposition. They imagine that if God is truly with them, then no problem should appear, no betrayal should happen, no financial struggle should come, and no painful season should exist. But Jewish wisdom never teaches that. In fact, Torah shows the opposite. Even the righteous faced exile, tests, uncertainty, and deep suffering. The difference was never the absence of battles. The difference was the presence of God inside them. This changes everything, because when a person believes protection means comfort, they become disappointed every time life becomes difficult. But when they understand that protection means divine covering, divine direction, and divine presence even in hard seasons, then they stop measuring faith by comfort and begin measuring it by alignment. There are people who lose money but keep peace. There are people who face betrayal but do not lose dignity. There are people who pass through illness but do not lose hope. There are people who walk through storms but somehow remain standing. This is not weakness. This is spiritual architecture. And that architecture is built through the same principles we have been talking about: gratitude, trust, disciplined words, generosity, humility, and surrender. Many people want God to remove every battle, but sometimes God uses battles to reveal what comfort was hiding: pride hidden inside success, fear hidden inside control, false peace built on unstable foundations. Sometimes the storm is not punishment. Sometimes it is revelation. Jewish sages often teach that tests are not always proof of divine distance. Sometimes they are invitations to deeper dependence. Think about this carefully. Some people only discover the strength of prayer when life removes their illusion of control. Some only learn gratitude after they almost lose what they took for granted. Some only understand trust when the usual doors stop opening. Pain is not always destruction. Sometimes it is redirection. This does not mean suffering should be romanticized. Pain is real. Tears are real. Loss is real. But spiritual maturity asks a deeper question. What is this season trying to teach me that comfort never could? That question protects the soul from bitterness, because bitterness makes people blind. A bitter person stops recognizing blessings. They see only what is missing. They interpret every delay as rejection. They assume every closed door is abandonment. But trust changes perspective. Trust allows a person to ask not only why, but for what purpose. And purpose creates endurance. This is why the Jewish path values reflection so deeply. Not blind suffering, but conscious suffering. Not passive pain, but pain transformed into wisdom. There is a reason gold is refined by fire. There is a reason olive oil comes through pressure. There is a reason diamonds are formed under weight. Some things are only revealed through resistance, and often, character is one of them. A person may think they want prosperity, but without character, prosperity can destroy faster than poverty. Wealth without discipline creates chaos. Influence without humility creates corruption. Success without spiritual roots creates emptiness. That is why divine timing matters. Sometimes God delays because the blessing is ready, but the person is not. People often pray, "Why is this taking so long?" But heaven may be asking, "If I gave it now, would it bless you or break you?" That question requires honesty. Many people ask for expansion while refusing preparation. They want greater responsibility without smaller faithfulness. They want open doors without inner transformation. But Torah consistently teaches that preparation matters. Joseph was prepared before the palace. David was formed before the throne. Moses was shaped before leadership. The hidden season was not delay. It was development. The same is true today. Sometimes the season that feels like stagnation is actually construction. God is building patience, teaching discernment, removing pride, strengthening identity, breaking dependency on human approval, forming trust that success alone could never teach. And later, what felt like delay becomes visible mercy. This is why comparison is dangerous. You cannot compare your hidden preparation to someone else's visible result. People look at others and say, "They are ahead of me. They are more blessed. Their doors opened faster." But you do not know what God is protecting you from by slowing your path. Delay is not always denial. Sometimes it is preservation. And preservation is also protection. Jewish wisdom teaches that every person has their own path, their own tests, their own assignment. Envy blinds people to their own purpose. Gratitude restores vision. The question is not why someone else has what they have. The question is, am I becoming the person capable of carrying what I am asking for? That question changes ambition into maturity, and maturity attracts stability. This is also why repentance, or teshuvah, remains central even for people already walking in faith. Return is not only for dramatic mistakes, it is for daily realignment. A harsh word spoken carelessly, a prideful reaction, a neglected responsibility, a season of emotional distance from God, a compromise that looked small. Return matters, because spiritual protection is not maintained by perfection, but by quick correction. Wise people do not pretend they never fail. They learn to return faster. They apologize faster. They realign faster. They refuse to let pride turn small mistakes into long seasons of damage. This humility itself becomes protection, because pride isolates. Humility restores. A humble person can still be taught, can still be corrected, can still receive wisdom, and wisdom protects more than stubbornness ever will. This is why the strongest people spiritually are often not the loudest, but the most teachable. They listen, they observe, they correct. They do not need to appear strong because they are rooted, and roots matter more than appearance. At the end of life, people rarely regret not appearing more successful. They regret wasted time, broken trust, neglected family, ignored purpose, and years lived disconnected from what truly mattered. Jewish wisdom constantly returns to legacy because legacy reveals priorities. What are you building that survives you? Not just money, not just reputation, but peace, honor, faith, discipline, a family that remembers gratitude, children who understand integrity, a home where God is not a distant concept, but a daily reality. This is prosperity, and that is exactly why the ebook Prosperidad Judía can become such an important companion in your journey. It is not just about money. It is about building a life where prosperity and peace can coexist, a life where blessing does not create pride and difficulty does not destroy faith, a life with structure, not only inspiration. If you want to study these principles more deeply and apply them in practical ways, the link is in the description of this video, because in the end, the true secret is not hidden. It is repeated daily by those who understand. Give thanks. Trust God. Guard your words. Honor your responsibilities. Give generously. Return quickly. Refuse fear as your master. And remember who is truly carrying your life. That is why some people seem protected from everything. Not because they never face darkness, but because darkness never has the final word. If you stayed until here, write in the comments, "God is my protection and my peace." Write it with intention. And tell me, are you enjoying this content? Your participation strengthens this community and helps this message reach more people who need it. Here on Sabiduría Judía, there are many more videos about prosperity, divine protection, Torah wisdom, and the spiritual principles that can transform the way you live every day.